Hey guys, it's Bailey and welcome back to the channel for what is going to be a video all about my top favorite all over face palettes, I guess. They're not contour palettes because they contain contour, highlight, and blush. And there have been quite a few palettes like these coming out recently. And so I wanted to do kind of a roundup, include all of my faves, talk about why they're different, how they're different, why they might work for you, and why one might not. So that in the event you are looking for one of these palettes for yourself, you know which one to pick, or at least I can help you out a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in because I do have quite a few to talk about. So I divided them into powder and cream because at this point there are quite a few of each that are out there. So let's start with powder and let's start with the affordable brands. These are two that recently launched and I've actually talked about most recently in individual reviews, and they are the Maybelline Master Contour and Rimmel Kate. What are these called? There's like, it's not, the official name isn't on here, but it's like the Rimmel Contour and Highlight by Kate or something like that, but basically it's this guy. And so I will link to all the reviews that I have of any of the products that I talk about in this video in the description below, just in case you want more information. Chances are there's a demo in that video that you can see. Just enrich the whole review experience here. But basically these guys naturally contain contour, blush, and highlight. The Rimmel is Coral Glow, so naturally this blush is going to be a little bit more peachy corally, whereas this Maybelline Master is the light to medium. There is one other that's medium deep, but both blushes, I believe, maybe the medium deep is a little bit more kind of warmer corally, but the light medium at least is this light dusty rose, but it is very layerable. So if all of this looks like it's just a little bit too light for you, be aware that the shades in both of these palettes are very buildable so that you can get exactly, if not even a little darker than what you see in the pan here. Both of these are very similar. I would say the main difference is that the Maybelline contour shade is more of a contour shade. It's more matte, hint of satin. It's not completely matte, but it's certainly more matte than the Rimmel shade. This is something that I would call an all-over bronzer because it is intensely satin finish. And then the highlights are also different as well. That in the Maybelline palette has a beautiful pink pearlescence to it, whereas the Rimmel is more of a straightforward champagne kind of illuminator, both of which are super finely milled. You're not gonna look like a disco ball with like detectable glitter all over your face. I'm not wearing either of these. I'll tell you which one I'm wearing later, but I was really impressed with the palettes overall, but the highlighter specifically, because we're getting beyond the point in drugstore products where it just looks like you're wearing glitter on your face. These are really high quality powders that just blend nice and beautifully. But those are the main differences I would say between these two palettes. Is the Rimmel is more of a bronzer, whereas the Maybelline you can use both as a bronzer or a contour if you really want to. Next up is one that's actually been around for a while. It's the Sleek Face Form Contouring and Blush Palette. Mine is in light, but you can see this contour actually by comparison. I don't know why it looks so dark, because when you put it next to something like this one from Maybelline, it's really not. The glare here probably doesn't help, but it's actually not all that dark. It is a little bit deeper, and so very fair skin tones might find it's not super easy to kind of tone down on their face, but it's going to work really, really nicely for you know, light to medium, even a little bit of medium deep if you really want to build it. So that's nice. However, just those with fair skin tones might want to look more towards the Maybelline Rimmel or the next one that I want to talk about. But back to this guy. This has a totally matte contour shade, no satin at all, an amazing, like this highlight is just so pigmented. Another one of those that's so finely milled. It's more of a frosty white champagne, not really warm, probably I would even say cooler leaning to match this pink shade over here. However, this is like NARS Orgasm City. It is that iconic peachy pink blush with gold shimmer throughout. And so really you could use this blush as like a 2-in-1 highlight, but if you really want to blow it out and use something a little bit cooler, you can go in with this highlight, and altogether these shades are just gorgeous. And the packaging, I love how sleek and compact all of Sleek's products are. Last up for affordable powders is a relatively new one from e.l.f. This is the Total Face Palette. I recently talked about this in a What's New at e.l.f. haul. Basically, this is like a lot of their kind of 4-pan palettes, but unlike a lot of those that they've come out with, this already has the contour, or really bronzer, blush, and highlight. This is another one of those where the contour shade is pretty heavily satin, and so I don't know that I would go really building it up in my contour. It's great for an all over bronzer shade, and this is another one of those palettes where the shades build. It looks very light, it's great for very fair and light skin tones, but it also is certainly buildable. I think a lot of people with, or some people with medium skin tones said this worked for them, so don't be too deterred if this looks like it's too light for you. And the nice thing about this palette is it not only gives you that contour, but it gives you two blush shades, one more pink leaning, one more peach leaning, nice variety, and then the highlight once again in here, absolutely gorgeous, has kind of a pinky, almost like a pinky purple iridescence undertone to it, and so it's very nice and multifaceted. Frankly, I'd pick up all these just for the highlight because they are so beautiful. But the other unique thing about this palette from e.l.f. in particular is that, like all of those e.l.f. palettes, you can pop these pans out and replace them with other pans, whether you want to take your setting powder, or, you know, instead of needing two blush shades, you want to put a bolder matte blush shade, or, you know, a different contour shade, maybe a true contour shade as opposed to the shimmery bronzer or satin bronzer in here. So this is probably the option, the more affordable option I'm going to talk about with the most versatility. And last is kind of an oldie, but obviously a goodie. It's the Vitality Face Disc from IT Cosmetics, and it is one of those classics. Has the contour on one side, which this is really more of a true contour, very lightly satin, but not so satin that you can't really build it up in the contour. Then you have, once again, a kind of orgasm-esque shade here, peachy pink with a subtle shimmer, not nearly as intense of a gold shimmer as that in the Sleek contour kit, but it's definitely there. And then this again is a gorgeous highlight, very, very finely milled, but it too has kind of a pinky iridescent undertone to it. So it's definitely leans towards the cooler side of things. And then the other palette, and I couldn't find it to make this video, but I did a dupe or dud of this with the Crown Brush palette that literally looks identical. The biggest difference between the two is the highlight shade, and that one does have a warmer highlight shade. So go check that video out if you're interested in learning more about a much more affordable alternative, but both are great options if you're looking for a very simple all-in-one face powder palette. Moving on to creams, and you might choose a cream contour palette or all over face palette over a powder palette. If depending on like the texture of your skin, if you tend to have drier skin, creams can blend in more easily. They'll be a little bit more hydrating. They won't cling to those dry patches if it's a good cream formula, that is. I also find that those products are a little bit more naturally buildable than powder products, and you'll see that a few of these actually have a little bit more versatility in the way of customization and using them for your full face of makeup. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the creams. The first one I want to start with is kind of what jump-started the idea for this video, because I got this guy from Makeup Forever. This is the new Makeup Forever Pro Sculpting palette, and this is what I'm wearing today. This contains like a matte cream highlight shade, because I want to call it a highlight shade, but there actually is a shimmery highlight in here. So this is a cream highlight shade that you can use if you want to just lighten up, you know, that triangle under your eye or the center of your forehead. You want to highlight anywhere around your face, but you don't want that shimmer. You just want to bring the light there without that, you know, without the fear of making it look too greasy or too shiny or anything like that. That's what this guy's for. Then you have this beautiful, cooler leaning contour shade. Very, very natural, very buildable, but you can also see can be pulled off in a more natural way. And next to that is the shimmery highlight. It's this gorgeous, once again, it's what I'm wearing on the tops of my cheekbones today. Ooh. And it is more of a frosty, slightly warm, I'd say it's mostly neutral though. It's right smack in between a warmer champagne and like a cooler pinky kind of thing. Very universally flattering. And then the blush in here is a cream finish, so no shimmer in it at all, but it's kind of like a cream or maybe even like an apricot blush if I had to say. But this too is very buildable, and all of these creams in here are a cream to powder formula, so they dry down very nicely. They don't stay sticky, tacky, anything like that, and once they dry down, they set throughout the day. So this is a phenomenal formula. Now moving on to the product that has that versatility I was talking about before. It is the Mascara 3D foundation, which is so much more than a foundation. It is, I mean, like this video suggests, a full-on contour, highlight, blush, everything all in one sort of kit. But because, I mean, you get a lot of product, more than you do in the Makeup Forever, and the formula here lends itself to being a foundation. You can apply it all over, and I actually, when I reviewed this, believe I did do a demo. If not, I have a separate tutorial. I'll dig around for that and link it down below. But basically, you can not only use this like over a full face of foundation and use this to contour, highlight, blush, all that kind of stuff, but you could also just use it for foundation. And I think that's how she recommends using it, is you put the contour where, you know, you typically would contour your face. You put the cream, matte cream highlight shade wherever you would highlight your face, and then you buff the two together, and it just creates this flawless, seamless foundation with built-in contour and highlight. And then from there, you'll go in and blush and highlight with a shimmery highlight shade. And this is the palette that I use for my skin tone, but she also has quite a few other, like this would be for a deeper skin tone, and so there's definitely a ton of versatility here. You buy the palette itself and then you fill it with these pans, so you can actually mix and match between this and what I have in the other palette here, depending on what works for your skin tone, what shade of blush you want, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's ultra versatile and it's an amazing formula. And last is another product that I talked about recently. It is the Laura Mercier Bon Mine palette, and this guy, so here is the palette itself. It's cardboard but feels very sturdy. You have what is kind of a, I guess it's cool, but relative to a lot of the other things I've talked about here, it has a slight warmth to it, and it is the bronzer veil. All these are very buildable, but they do kind of lean on the lighter. They're going to cater more towards the fair, light medium, maybe medium skin tones. But don't be fooled by how kind of subdued they may look in the packaging, because they are definitely buildable. But there is the bronzing veil. Then you have two blush shades here, one kind of peachy or pink, and then one a deeper gorgeous berry, and two highlight shades. One's more of a bronzy highlight shade, and the other is more of a champagne. They're glow veils, but more of a champagne or golden highlight shade. And then you also, this would be a great palette for someone who is totally new to the contour, highlight, blush, especially with cream products, because it comes with these cards that helps you figure out where to put the product to create the face shape, or kind of just help sculpt your face in the way you want, or the way that best suits your face shape. So this is great for beginners, and it also gives you a lot more variety in the way of cream products goes, because you have those two highlights and the two blush shades. But the one thing I found with these is that they did stay a little bit tacky. Not so that it transferred, but it certainly didn't dry down to a powder like the Makeup Forever formula did. So it might be a little bit more hydrating for those that have drier skin tones, but for those with oily, I noticed it working well on my combo skin. It did look glowy and dewy, but not overly greasy. But those with oily skin tones might want to go for something more like the Makeup Forever over something like this, just for that texture. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope this video was useful. Kind of running through all these palettes will help you make your decision if you, like I said, are looking for something like this to fit in your makeup collection. But besides that, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye, guys.